I could feel the moisture in the air, heavy with the promise of rain and something else, anticipation. The great hall buzzed with whispers and furtive glances as members of our pack gathered for the annual mate selection ceremony. My fingertips traced the silver pendant that hung around my neck, my grandmother's last gift before she passed. "Remember, Elena," she had whispered, her voice like dried leaves. "True strength isn't found in claws or teeth, but in here." She had placed her weathered palm against my heart. Now, I stood in the shadows, my pale blonde hair cascading down my back, trying to make myself invisible. A skill I'd perfected over years of being the quiet one, the overlooked one. My younger sister Melody, with her perfect smile and effortless charm, stood in the center of a circle of admirers. She'd been preparing for this night for months, while I had been hoping it would somehow pass me by. The selection wasn't meant to be a competition, but everyone knew it was. Unmated females presented themselves to the eligible males of rank, and if the spirits blessed you, a connection would form. My mother had spent the morning pinning my hair, her fingers trembling with an excitement I couldn't share. "Nathan has been watching you, Elena," she had whispered, hope dancing in her eyes. "A beta choosing you would elevate our family's standing. Nathan, the beta of our pack, handsome, strong, and as far as I could tell, completely uninterested in me despite my mother's fantasies." Still, I had nodded, not wanting to extinguish that rare flame of hope I saw in her eyes. Our family had fallen from grace when my father died defending the territory 3 winters ago. My mother deserved something good. The drums began, pulling me from my thoughts. The ceremony was starting. The alpha of our Silver Creek pack, a graying man named Morris, stood on the raised platform, his voice carrying across the hall without effort. "Tonight, as our ancestors have done since time immemorial, we honor the sacred bonds that strengthen our pack. May the moon goddess guide worthy souls together." I caught Nathan's eye from across the room. He was watching me, and for a breathless moment, I wondered if my mother had been right. A small, foolish part of me unfurled like a flower-seeking light. I had known Nathan since we were pups tumbling in the meadows. He had been kind to me when others weren't. Perhaps. But then his gaze shifted, landing on Melody, and stayed there. The hunger in his eyes was unmistakable. Something inside me crumpled, a paper lantern doused in rain. The ceremony proceeded with agonizing slowness. One by one, matches were proclaimed, celebrated with howls and embraces. I stood still, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach, the knowledge crystallizing with every passing minute. When Nathan finally approached our family, his eyes never met mine. He bowed formally to my mother, then turned to Melody. "I would be honored if you would accept my intention to court you," he said, voice steady and sure. Melody's face bloomed with pleasure. She looked at our mother, who nodded quickly, eyes bright. Neither of them looked at me. "I accept," Melody said, extending her hand. The gathered pack members cheered, a sound like thunder in my ears. I backed away slowly, unnoticed in the celebration, until my shoulders hit the cool stone wall. I slipped out the side entrance, gulping the night air as if I'd been drowning. The forest beckoned, dark and welcoming. I let my feet carry me forward, away from the sounds of celebration, away from the sympathetic glances that would inevitably follow. Poor Elena, always second best. Poor Elena, never chosen. I walked until the noise faded entirely, until the only sounds were the whisper of leaves and my own ragged breathing. Stopping at a small clearing, I tilted my face up to the 3/4 moon, feeling exposed and raw. "Stupid," I whispered to myself. So stupid to hope. A twig snapped behind me, and I whirled around, heart hammering. Nothing moved in the darkness, but I could feel it, the weight of eyes upon me, watching. My wolf stirred beneath my skin, suddenly alert. "Who's there?" I called, hating the tremor in my voice. Silence answered, but the sensation of being watched intensified. I took a step back, then another, prepared to run. "You shouldn't be alone in these woods." The voice emerged from the shadows before the man did, deep, commanding, unfamiliar. especially not on a night like this. He stepped into the moonlight, and my breath caught. He was tall, powerfully built, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to absorb the night around them. I had never seen him before, yet something in me recognized him. The way prey recognizes predator. "These are my pack's lands," I said, lifting my chin despite the fear coursing through me. "I have every right to be here." A smile ghosted across his face, there and gone like lightning. "Your pack's lands? Are you certain of that, little wolf?" Before I could respond, howls erupted in the distance. Not the celebratory calls from the ceremony, but alarm signals. The stranger didn't even flinch. "It seems your pack has noticed their visitors," he said, taking a step closer. "But they found me before I found them." Understanding dawned slowly, horror following close behind. "Visitors? Who are you?" "My name is Dominic," he said, now close enough that I could feel the heat emanating from his body. "Alpha King of the Northern Territories. And you, little wolf with sad eyes, what do they call you?" Alpha King. The title hit me like a physical blow. Stories of the ruthless northern packs had reached even our remote territory. Their strength, their resources, their expansion. What was their king doing here, in our small corner of the world? "Elena," I answered, my voice barely audible. "Elena," he repeated, and something about the way my name sounded in his mouth made my wolf stir again, restless and confused. "Tell me, Elena, why are you crying alone in the forest while your pack celebrates?" I wiped at my cheeks, surprised to find them wet. "I'm not crying." His expression softened fractionally. "Your eyes tell a different story." More howls cut through the night, closer now. "Search parties." Dominic glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. "It seems our conversation will be cut short," he said, "but I find I'm not ready to say goodbye, Elena of the Silver Creek Pack." He reached out, and I flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch surprisingly gentle for hands that looked capable of violence. "They rejected you," he said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. Their mistake. Before I could respond, he was gone, melting into the shadows as if he'd never been there at all. Moments later, 3 wolves burst into the clearing, shifting quickly into their human forms. Nathan was at their lead, his expression transitioning from concern to relief to something harder when he saw me. "Elena, what are you doing out here?" he demanded. "There are intruders, northern wolves crossing our borders." I stared at him. This man who had just broken my heart without even noticing, now acting as if he had any right to be worried about me. "I needed air," I said simply. "You could have been hurt," he said, his gaze sweeping the clearing. "Did you see anyone? Sense anything?" I thought of dark eyes and a voice that seemed to reach inside me. I thought of the words, "Their mistake." "No," I lied, "nothing at all." The next morning dawned gray and somber. News of the northern wolves' incursion had spread through the pack like wildfire, overshadowing the matches made at the ceremony. I moved through the common areas like a ghost, invisible among the worried conversations and hurried preparations. The council had been in session since dawn, debating what the Alpha King's presence on our territory could mean. I found myself in the pack kitchen, mechanically kneading bread dough, when Melody slipped in beside me. Her face was flushed with excitement despite the tension gripping the rest of the pack. "Elena," she whispered, leaning close. "Can you believe what's happening? Nathan says the Northern Alpha himself was here last night." I pressed my knuckles into the dough harder than necessary. "So I heard." She hesitated, her expression softening. "About last night, at the ceremony." "Congratulations," I cut her off, not looking up. "You and Nathan will be happy together." "Elena, please, I didn't know you wanted—" "I don't," I lied. "Want him, that is. I'm happy for you, truly." My sister's hand covered mine, stilling my movements. "He's requested I join him on the border patrol today. The Alphas are meeting to discuss terms. The Northern Pack wants something from us, and Nathan thinks I should be there to observe, as his intended." I finally looked at her. This sister, who had always been the sun to my moon, brighter, warmer, more noticeable. I couldn't hate her, even now. It wasn't her fault that she shone while I faded into background. "Be careful," I said, meaning it. "The North has a reputation." She squeezed my hand. "I will. And Elena, there will be someone for you too, someone who sees you." The words echoed in my head long after she left. Someone who sees you. I thought of dark eyes in the forest, of the way Dominic had looked at me, really looked, when everyone else seemed to look through me. "Their mistake," he had said. I shook the thought away. Whatever the Alpha King had seen in me last night, it couldn't have been anything significant. Men like him didn't notice women like me. That afternoon, I found myself wandering toward the pack borders, drawn by a curiosity I couldn't explain. The delegation from our pack would be meeting the northern wolves at the stone bridge that marked our territory's edge. I told myself I was concerned for Melody, but a more honest part of me knew I was hoping for a glimpse of him, the stranger who had made me feel visible. I stayed within the tree line, careful to remain downwind. The stone bridge came into view, and with it, 2 groups of wolves facing each other across the narrow stream. Our alpha, Morris, stood flanked by his advisors and strongest fighters. Nathan was there, with Melody half a step behind him, looking small and out of place among the warriors. Across the bridge stood the northern wolves, fewer in number, but somehow more imposing. And at their center, unmistakable even at this distance, stood Dominic. Even in human form, he radiated a power that made our alpha seem diminished in comparison. Their voices carried on the wind, fragments reaching me. "Cannot simply claim what isn't yours," Morris was saying, his voice strained with forced diplomacy. "I'm not claiming anything yet," Dominic replied, his voice as I remembered it, deep, assured. "I'm offering an alliance. Through what means?" Morris asked. "The traditional way," Dominic said. "A union between our packs." I froze. A union. A political mating. It was not unheard of between neighboring packs, but our small territory had little to offer a kingdom as vast as the North. "And who exactly do you propose for this union?" Morris asked. I couldn't see Dominic's face from my position, but I could hear the smile in his voice when he answered. "I have someone in mind." My heart began to race without reason. Surely he meant one of our higher-ranking females, perhaps even Melody, though the thought made my stomach twist with something that felt like fear rather than jealousy. The meeting continued, voices growing more heated, then subsiding into tense negotiation. I should have left, returned to the safety of the pack house. But I remained rooted to the spot, watching the Alpha King move and speak with absolute command of his surroundings. I was so focused on the meeting that I failed to notice the wolf approaching, until a low growl sounded directly behind me. I whirled to find one of the northern sentries, a massive gray wolf with amber eyes, teeth bared in warning. Before I could react, run, scream, shift, he lunged forward, not to attack, but to herd me, forcing me out of the trees and into the open. All conversation at the bridge stopped as I stumbled into view, the gray wolf at my heels. Every eye turned to me. Embarrassment burned through me as Morris's face darkened with anger. "Elena," he snapped. "What are you doing here?" I stood frozen, mortification washing over me in waves. The gray wolf circled back to the northern delegation, shifting smoothly into human form, a broad-shouldered man with a scarred face who took his place beside Dominic. "Spying, Alpha Morris?" Dominic asked, but his eyes were fixed on me, not on our pack leader. "No," I managed, finding my voice. "I wasn't spying. I was just—" "Silence," Morris hissed. "Return to the pack house immediately, Elena." Nathan stepped forward, Melody still behind him. "I'll escort her back," he offered, his voice tight with disapproval. "No." The single word, spoken with quiet authority, came from Dominic. The gathering fell silent, tension thickening the air. "She stays," the Alpha King continued. His gaze hadn't left my face. "In fact, her arrival is fortuitous. We were just discussing the terms of our alliance." Morris's brow furrowed. "What does Elena have to do with our negotiations?" Dominic smiled then, a slow, predatory curve of his lips that made my pulse quicken. "Everything," he said simply. He stepped forward, crossing the stone bridge with unhurried confidence. No one moved to stop him. Not Morris, not Nathan, not any of our pack's warriors. There was something in his presence that commanded stillness, that made even alphas hesitate. He stopped directly in front of me, up close. I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the faint scar that traced the line of his jaw. "Elena of the Silver Creek Pack," he said, his voice pitched low but carrying to every ear. "I am claiming you as my mate." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Gasps and murmurs erupted from both delegations. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "What?" I whispered. "You can't be serious." Nathan's voice cut through the chaos, incredulous. "She's nobody, just a packmate of common rank. Surely you would prefer—" "Careful," Dominic interrupted, his voice deceptively soft. "You're speaking of my chosen mate." My eyes darted to Melody, who looked as shocked as I felt, then to Morris, whose expression had shifted from anger to calculated assessment. "Alpha King," Morris said carefully. "While we are of course honored by your interest in one of our pack, perhaps we should discuss more suitable candidates. We have several unmated females of noble lineage. I've made my choice." Dominic cut him off. "Elena, no other." He turned his attention back to me, and despite the audience surrounding us, it felt suddenly as if we were alone. "Unless," he said, voice gentling, "you wish to refuse." I knew what he was offering with those words. A choice, when by pack law he could simply take. An Alpha King could claim any unmated wolf. Consent was a courtesy, not a requirement. Yet he stood before me, publicly offering me what no one had ever bothered to give me before. Agency. "Why me?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Something like tenderness flashed across his face, so brief I might have imagined it. "Why not you?" Before I could respond, Nathan stepped forward, positioning himself at my side. "This is absurd," he said. "Elena isn't suitable for an alpha mate, let alone a queen. She's too soft, too." He gestured vaguely at me, as if my inadequacies were obvious to everyone present. A low growl rumbled from Dominic's chest. "Your beta seems to have strong opinions about a wolf he rejected," he said to Morris, though his eyes remained fixed on Nathan. "Perhaps he should remember his place." Nathan stiffened but fell silent, a muscle working in his jaw. "Elena," Melody's voice, small and confused. "What is happening?" What was happening? I couldn't have answered if my life depended on it. Yesterday, I had been invisible, overlooked, the sister of the girl everyone wanted. Today, the most powerful alpha in 3 territories was claiming me as his mate. It made no sense. "I need time," I said finally, addressing Dominic directly, "to consider." He inclined his head slightly, respecting my request, of course. "Though I should warn you, little wolf, my patience has limits." He turned back to Morris. 3 days. She will have 3 days to decide. In the meantime, no one touches her. No one pressures her. She is under my protection now, regardless of her choice. The walk back to the pack house passed in a blur, with Morris and Nathan flanking me like prison guards. Melody trailed behind, unusually quiet. No one spoke until we reached the Alpha's private study, where Morris rounded on me the moment the door closed. "What game are you playing, Elena?" he demanded, his face flushed with anger. "What did you do to attract his attention?" "Nothing," I said truthfully. "I met him in the forest last night, but we barely spoke." "You what?" Nathan's voice rose sharply. "You lied to me. You said you saw nothing, because it wasn't your business," I shot back, surprising myself with the heat in my voice. "Just like I'm not your business. You made that perfectly clear last night." Nathan had the grace to look uncomfortable. This isn't about that. This is about pack security. The Northern Alpha is dangerous, Elena. His pack has been expanding their territory for years, absorbing smaller packs through force or political marriages. Don't you see? He's using you. Nathan's right, Morris said, pacing the room. This is a political move. He wants our territory, our resources. If you accept, our pack becomes subordinate to his. "And if I refuse?" I asked quietly. Morris stopped pacing. "Then we prepare for war." The weight of his words settled over the room like a shroud. War. Our small pack against the might of the Northern Territories. It would be a massacre. So my choice is to sacrifice myself or doom our entire pack. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. It's not a sacrifice, Melody spoke up unexpectedly. He's the Alpha King. Any female would kill to be in your position. I looked at her, this sister who had always had everything I wanted, now staring at me with something like envy. The irony might have been funny under different circumstances. You have 3 days, Morris said. Use them wisely. Think about your pack, your family. They left me alone after that, but their words followed me like shadows as I moved through the pack house. Whispers trailed in my wake, curious and judgmental in equal measure. By nightfall, everyone knew of Dominic's claim and my temporary reprieve. My mother cornered me in our small family quarters, her eyes bright with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Is it true? She asked, gripping my arms. The Northern Alpha has claimed you? I nodded, unable to find words to explain something I didn't understand myself. But why? She whispered, echoing my own question from the bridge. I don't know, I said honestly. She sat heavily on the edge of my bed, looking suddenly old and frail. Elena, if you accept, you would be Queen of the North. Our family would be elevated beyond anything we could have hoped for. She took my hand in hers. But those northern wolves, they say they're different. Harsher. Colder. I know. If you go with him, I might never see you again. I knelt beside her, resting my head in her lap like I used to as a child. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Her fingers stroked my pale hair, a comforting rhythm. What does your heart tell you? I closed my eyes. My heart was a confused tangle of fear, resentment, and something else. Something that sparked to life when I remembered Dominic's eyes, the way he had looked at me as if I were worth seeing. No one had ever looked at me that way before. I'm afraid, I whispered. Of him? I considered this. Despite his power, despite the stories, I realized I wasn't afraid of Dominic himself. No, I'm afraid of making the wrong choice. I'm afraid of what happens either way. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers still moving through my hair. Your grandmother used to say that fear is just the shadow cast by courage. You cannot have one without the other. I touched the silver pendant at my throat, my grandmother's last gift. True strength isn't found in claws or teeth, but in here. Maybe this was what she had meant, the strength to face impossible choices, to step into the unknown. That night, I dreamed of running through moonlit forests, a dark wolf at my side. I woke with the phantom sensation of fur against my skin, of belonging. The first of my 3 days passed in a fog of confusion and conflicting advice. Everyone, it seemed, had an opinion about what I should do. The pack elders counseled sacrifice for the greater good. The younger wolves, especially the females, couldn't understand my hesitation. To them, becoming Queen of the North was a fairy tale, not a sentence. Nathan avoided me entirely, while Melody watched me with an expression I couldn't decipher. By the evening of the second day, I felt like I might shatter from the pressure. After dinner in the communal hall, where every glance felt like an accusation, I slipped away to the small herb garden behind the pack house. It had been my sanctuary since childhood, a quiet place where I could be alone with my thoughts. I sat on the stone bench, breathing in the mingled scents of lavender and sage, letting the familiar surroundings calm my racing mind. The moon hung heavy and bright above, nearly full now. I wondered what it would be like to run beneath a different moon, in different forests, to belong to a different pack, to belong to him. I thought I might find you here. I startled at the voice, turning to find Nathan standing at the garden's edge. He looked tired, the confident beta facade cracked to reveal something vulnerable beneath. What do you want, Nathan? I asked, too exhausted for politeness. He approached slowly, as if afraid I might bolt, to talk, to explain. There's nothing to explain. You chose Melody. You had every right to. I know, but... He sat beside me, careful to maintain distance between us. Elena, you have to understand. As beta, I need a mate who can stand beside me, who can help lead the pack. Melody is strong, outgoing. She'll make a good beta female. Each word was a small cut, precise and painful. And I wouldn't, I said flatly. That's not what He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, none of this matters now anyway. Things have changed. The Northern Alpha's claim changes everything. I studied his face in the moonlight. This wolf I had quietly loved for years. What are you saying, Nathan? I'm saying you can't accept his claim. His voice hardened. He doesn't want you, Elena. He wants our territory. Once he has what he wants, who knows what he'll do to you? The stories we've heard about the northern wolves are just stories, I interrupted. You don't know him. And you do? Nathan laughed incredulously. One meeting in the forest, and you think you understand the Alpha King? No, I admitted, but I understand that he saw me when no one else did. Not even you. I stood, needing distance from him. Especially not you. Nathan rose as well, his expression darkening. So that's it? Your wounded pride is worth the future of our entire pack? This isn't about pride. Then what is it about? Help me understand, Elena, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're willing to hand our pack over to a tyrant because he batted his eyes at you. No. From where you're standing, it looks like you might lose control of something you never valued until someone else wanted it. The words escaped me in a rush of anger I hadn't known I possessed. Nathan stilled, his eyes widening with surprise, then narrowing. Is that what you think? That I'm jealous? Aren't you? He moved toward me then, too quickly for me to retreat. His hands gripped my upper arms, not painfully, but firmly enough to keep me in place. If you think I'm going to let you destroy our pack because you're flattered by attention from an alpha, let go of me. My voice was quiet but steady. Elena, be reasonable. I believe the lady asked you to release her. The new voice sliced through the night air like a blade, cold, sharp, and unmistakable. Nathan froze, his hands still on my arms. Slowly, we both turned toward the garden entrance. Dominic stood there, his massive frame silhouetted against the night sky. Even in the shadows, I could see the dangerous gleam in his eyes, the barely leashed violence in the set of his shoulders. Alpha King, Nathan said, immediately releasing me and taking a step back. This is pack business. You have no jurisdiction here until Elena accepts your claim. If she accepts. Dominic moved into the garden with predatory grace. I warned you yesterday, Beta. She is under my protection now, regardless of her choice. His gaze shifted to me, softening fractionally. Are you all right, little wolf? I nodded, struck speechless by his sudden appearance. What was he doing here, in the heart of our territory, apparently alone? Good. He returned his attention to Nathan, all softness vanishing. You were saying something about jurisdiction. Perhaps you'd like to test that theory. The air between the two wolves crackled with tension. Despite being a beta, strong and dominant in his own right, Nathan seemed to shrink under Dominic's gaze. That won't be necessary, Nathan said, his voice tight. He looked at me, something like betrayal in his eyes. Just think about what I said, Elena. With a final glare at Dominic, he retreated, disappearing around the corner of the pack house. I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, my shoulders slumping with sudden exhaustion. How did you know I was here? Dominic's expression remained unreadable. I felt your distress. That's not possible, I said automatically. We're not mated. A smile ghosted across his face. Perhaps not officially, but there are other kinds of connections, little wolf. He moved closer, and I found myself rooted to the spot, caught between the instinct to flee and the inexplicable desire to move toward him instead. You shouldn't be here, I said, glancing nervously toward the pack house. If Morris finds out you've entered our territory without permission, he knows. What? Your alpha knows I'm here. I requested a private meeting with you, and he granted it, albeit reluctantly. Dominic gestured to the stone bench. May I? I nodded, still processing this information as he sat, leaving space for me to join him. After a moment's hesitation, I did. Why would Morris allow this? I asked. Because he's practical. He knows the odds if our packs go to war. Dominic studied me in the moonlight, but that's not why I came. Then why? I wanted to see you, he said simply. Away from the politics. away from the posturing, just you. I searched his face for deception, but found none. I don't understand you, I admitted. Any of this. Why claim me? You could have any female from any pack. Is that what they've been telling you, that I've claimed you for political gain? I looked away. Haven't you? His laugh was low and without humor. If politics were my concern, I would have claimed your alpha's daughter, or perhaps your lovely sister, the one standing behind your beta yesterday. My head snapped up. How did you know Melody is my sister? I know many things about Silver Creek Pack, Elena. I've been watching your territory for some time. Why? He was silent for a long moment, his gaze lifting to the moon above us. There have been disturbances along our borders, rogues moving in organized patterns, attacking smaller packs. My scouts traced their movements to the forests surrounding Silver Creek. You think our pack is responsible? I asked, incredulous. No. But I think whoever is responsible might be using your territory as a staging ground, taking advantage of your pack's limited awareness. The diplomatic phrasing didn't disguise the criticism. Our pack was small, our defenses weaker than they once had been. Since my father's death, Morris had become increasingly insular, focusing on internal matters rather than what lay beyond our borders. So, this is about the rogues, I said, a weight settling in my chest. Not about me at all. Dominic turned to me then, his gaze intense enough to steal my breath. Make no mistake, Elena. My interest in your pack's security and my interest in you are separate matters. Then why me? I asked again, needing to hear it. Because when I saw you in the forest that night, you looked at me without fear, because you stood alone under the moon, wounded but unbroken. His voice dropped lower, because every instinct I possess recognized you, even before I knew your name. Something warm and unfamiliar bloomed in my chest at his words. You don't know me, I said, but there was no conviction in it. I know enough. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The simple touch sent a shiver through me. I know you feel it too, this connection between us. I couldn't deny it. There was something there, something that had been there from the moment we met in the moonlit clearing. A recognition that defied explanation. If I say yes, I whispered, what happens to my pack? They become part of the Northern Kingdom, under my protection. No one would be displaced. Morris would remain Alpha of Silver Creek, answering to me as his king. And if I say no? His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did, a flicker of what might have been pain. Then I leave, and we find another way to address the rogue threat. I won't force you, Elena. I won't wage war on your pack for your refusal. Relief washed through me, followed immediately by confusion. If he was willing to walk away, then his claim truly wasn't about territory or politics. It was about me. The realization was dizzying. No one had ever wanted just me before. I still have one more day to decide, I said carefully. He nodded, standing. One more day. But know this, little wolf. Whatever you choose, that connection between us won't disappear. It will remain, an echo of what could have been. He held out his hand to me. I hesitated, then placed mine in his, allowing him to help me to my feet. His hand was warm, calloused, strong around mine. Walk with me, he asked. Just to the edge of your territory. I'd like a few more moments of your company before I go. I should have declined. I should have returned to the safety of the pack house, to the confusion of advice and expectations. Instead, I nodded. We walked in comfortable silence through the gardens, then along the narrow path that led into the forest. The night was alive around us. The rustle of small creatures in the underbrush, the distant call of an owl, the whisper of leaves in the gentle breeze. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. Tell me about yourself, Elena, Dominic said after a while. Not what others say about you, but who you truly are. The request caught me off guard. Who was I, really? I had spent so long trying to disappear, to cause no trouble, that I wasn't sure I knew anymore. I'm nothing special, I said finally. Not like Melody or the other wolves who stand out. I'm just ordinary. I disagree, he said, his voice warm in the darkness. There's nothing ordinary about you. You can't possibly know that, can I? I see how you watch everything, how you notice what others miss. I see the kindness in you, the strength you don't recognize. He glanced at me. I see the loneliness too. His perception unsettled me. What about you? I deflected. Who is the Alpha King when he's not being a king? A low chuckle rumbled from his chest. A fair question. I suppose I'm someone who carries too many responsibilities and too many regrets. Someone who has learned that power isn't the same as strength, and that strength isn't always enough. There was a vulnerability in his admission that surprised me. That sounds lonely too, I observed. It can be. We had reached the small stream that marked the edge of Silver Creek territory. Across it lay the neutral zone, and beyond that, the beginning of the vast northern lands. Dominic stopped, turning to face me. This is where I leave you, he said. For now. I nodded, suddenly reluctant to part. Thank you for explaining things, Elena. He took both my hands in his touch gentle despite the power I knew those hands possessed. Whatever you decide tomorrow, know that I meant every word. My claim isn't political, it's personal. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent warmth spiraling through me. Then he was gone, crossing the stream in one fluid leap and disappearing into the shadows of the forest beyond. I stood there for a long moment, my hand still tingling where his lips had touched. Then I turned and made my way back to the pack house, my mind clearer than it had been in days. I slept deeply that night, without dreams or restlessness. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through my window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the golden beams. My final day of decision had arrived. I dressed with care, choosing a simple blue dress that my mother had made for the spring festival. I braided my hair in a crown around my head, the way my grandmother had taught me years ago. Around my neck, her silver pendant gleamed. The pack house was unnaturally quiet as I made my way to the great hall. Everyone knew what day it was, what choice I faced. Eyes followed me, curious and wary, but no one approached. When I entered the hall, I found it already full. Morris and the elders seated at the raised table, Nathan and Melody to their right, my mother standing alone to the left. And at the center, waiting with calm confidence, stood Dominic with two of his wolves flanking him. His eyes found mine immediately, but he made no move toward me. This was my moment, my choice to make without pressure or coercion. Morris stood as I approached. Elena, the time has come for your decision. Will you accept the Alpha King's claim and unite our packs, or will you refuse? All eyes were on me, the silence absolute. I looked at my mother, who offered a tremulous smile. At Melody, who watched with an expression caught between envy and concern. At Nathan, whose face was carefully blank now, though his eyes betrayed his tension. And finally at Dominic, who simply waited, his gaze steady on mine. In his eyes, I saw not a king or a conqueror, but a man. One who, against all odds and reason, had chosen me. I touched my grandmother's pendant, drawing strength from it. True strength isn't found in claws or teeth, but in here. I accept, I said, my voice clear and carrying to every corner of the hall. I accept the Alpha King's claim. A collective exhale seemed to pass through the room. Relief from some, resignation from others. Dominic's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes kindled. A warmth, a triumph, a promise. Morris nodded solemnly. Then it is done. By the laws of our kind, Elena of Silver Creek is now mate to Dominic, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. Our packs are united under his rule. Dominic stepped forward then, closing the distance between us. He took my hand, raising it so that our joined hands were visible to all. Elena is not just my mate, he announced, his voice ringing with authority. She is my queen. Any who would harm her, disrespect her, or challenge her place at my side will answer directly to me. His eyes swept the room, lingering briefly on Nathan. I trust that's clear. Murmurs of assent rippled through the gathering. I stood tall beside him, fighting the urge to shrink from the attention. This was my new reality, no longer invisible, no longer overlooked. The mating ceremony will take place at the full moon, 3 nights from now, Dominic continued, at the sacred clearing in the Northern Territory. All are welcome to attend. He looked down at me. If that suits you, my queen, the title sent a shiver through me, equal parts terror and exhilaration. Yes, I said, sounding more confident than I felt. The full moon is fitting. What followed was a blur of activity. Preparations needed to be made, arrangements settled for the wolves who would travel north for the ceremony. As tradition dictated, I would leave immediately with Dominic to prepare in my new home for the mating ritual. My mother helped me pack my meager belongings, her hands trembling slightly as she folded my clothes. "Are you sure about this, Elena?" she asked quietly. "Once you're mated, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. "I can't explain it, but this feels right." She paused, studying my face. "You've changed already. There's something different about you. What do you mean?" "You're standing taller. Your voice is stronger." She touched my cheek. "It's like you've finally found something worth fighting for, even if that something is yourself." I hugged her tightly, inhaling her familiar scent of herbs and home. "You'll come for the ceremony? Wild wolves couldn't keep me away," she promised. Melody found me as I was preparing to leave, her expression troubled. "Elena, wait." I turned to her, unsure what to expect. Resentment? Jealousy? But what I saw in her face was concern. "Are you doing this for the right reasons?" she asked, "not just to spite Nathan or to prove something?" "No," I said honestly. "This isn't about Nathan anymore. It's about me and what I want." She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You look different. Happier, maybe." "I think I am." She hugged me suddenly, fiercely. "Be safe," she whispered. "And if he ever hurts you, I don't care if he's the alpha king of the entire world. I'll claw his eyes out myself." I laughed, startled and touched by her protectiveness. "I'll keep that in mind." When I finally emerged from the pack house, Dominic was waiting beside a sleek black SUV, its engine idling. He moved to take my bag, his fingers brushing mine in the exchange. "Ready?" he asked, searching my face. I glanced back at the only home I had ever known, at the familiar faces watching from windows and doorways. Then I looked ahead, at the man who had seen value in me when no one else had. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." The journey north was longer than I expected, the landscape changing gradually from the familiar mixed forests of Silver Creek to denser, more ancient woods. Dominic drove in comfortable silence, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing brief stories about the territories we passed. I mostly watched the world blur by, trying to process the enormous change my life had taken in just 3 days. "What are you thinking?" Dominic asked finally, his deep voice breaking the quiet. I turned from the window to study his profile. "That I barely know you, yet I'm leaving everything behind to be your queen." He smiled slightly. "Having second thoughts?" "No," I said truthfully. "Just adjusting. It's a lot to take in. I understand that." He reached across the console to take my hand. The casual intimacy of the gesture sent a warm current through me. "We have time, Elena. All the time we need." The Northern Territory's main pack house came into view as we crested a hill. A sprawling stone structure nestled against a mountainside, surrounded by smaller buildings and ringed by towering pines. Unlike our modest pack house, this was a fortress, a statement of power and permanence. "Welcome to your new home," Dominic said as we approached. Wolves appeared as we drew closer, emerging from buildings and pathways to watch our arrival. Their expressions ranged from curious to wary to openly hostile. I straightened in my seat, fighting the urge to shrink from their scrutiny. "They don't seem pleased about my arrival," I observed quietly. "They don't know you yet," Dominic replied. "That will change." We pulled up to the main entrance, where a small, welcoming committee waited. An older woman with steel-gray hair stepped forward as Dominic helped me from the car. "Alpha King." She greeted him with a respectful nod, then turned her sharp gaze on me. "And this must be your chosen mate." The slight hesitation before chosen mate spoke volumes. "Elena, this is Mara, my head of household," Dominic said. "She'll help you settle in." Mara's smile didn't reach her eyes. "It will be my pleasure, my king." I recognized the challenge in her cool assessment. She, like the others, was wondering what made me special enough to be their queen. "Thank you, Mara," I said, meeting her gaze steadily. I look forward to learning from someone with your experience. A flicker of surprise crossed her face before she masked it. Very well. If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your quarters. Dominic squeezed my hand. I have matters to attend to, but I'll find you for dinner. Mara will take good care of you. The warning in his voice was subtle, but unmistakable. Mara led me through the pack house, which was more like a castle inside. Stone corridors, high ceilings, and an air of ancient power. Wolves stopped and stared as we passed, some bowing their heads in deference, others watching with open curiosity. The Alpha King's chambers are in the East Wing, Mara explained. He's had rooms prepared for you adjacent to his. After the mating ceremony, you'll share his quarters, of course. I nodded, relieved that Dominic had respected the traditional waiting period before the full mating. Despite my decision, despite the undeniable pull between us, I wasn't quite ready for that level of intimacy yet. My rooms were beautiful, spacious and elegant, with large windows overlooking the forested valley below. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the main chamber, with a sitting area, private bathroom, and walk-in closet completing the suite. The king had clothes brought in for you, Mara said, gesturing to the closet. If anything doesn't fit or isn't to your liking, let me know. I walked to the closet and opened it, my eyes widening at the array of garments inside. Dresses, pants, tops, all in my size, in colors that would complement my pale hair and fair complexion. This is very generous, I managed. The king has been preparing for your arrival for some time, Mara said, something odd in her tone. I turned to her. What do you mean? She hesitated. It's not my place to say. Please, I said. I need to understand. Mara studied me for a long moment, then sighed. The king has been different these past few months, more restless, more driven. He increased patrols along the southern borders, spent more time in the archives researching old pack histories. Then 2 weeks ago, he called a council meeting and announced his intention to seek an alliance with Silver Creek. She paused. Through mating. 2 weeks ago? I echoed. But that's before we ever met. Yes. Mara's expression softened slightly. He knew exactly who he wanted, though. Described you perfectly. The quiet one with pale blonde hair and sad eyes, said the Silver Creek pack was blind not to recognize what they had. My head spun with this new information. Dominic had known about me, planned to claim me, before our meeting in the forest. But how? Why? I'll leave you to rest, Mara said, moving toward the door. Someone will come for you before dinner. She paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, I hope you're what he believes you are. He deserves some happiness. Alone, I moved to the window, trying to make sense of what I'd learned. The view was breathtaking. Mountains rising in the distance, forests stretching out below, a silver ribbon of river winding through the valley. So different from the modest beauty of Silver Creek. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Come in, I called, expecting Mara or perhaps another pack member. Instead, a young girl entered, perhaps 16 years old, with bright auburn hair and a smattering of freckles across her nose. She carried a tray with tea and what looked like small sandwiches. I thought you might be hungry after your journey, my queen, she said, her voice warm and friendly. I'm Lily, by the way. Please just call me Elena, I said, smiling at her easy manner. And thank you. I am hungry. She set the tray on a small table near the window. May I pour for you? I nodded, studying her as she moved with practiced grace. Unlike the others I'd encountered, she seemed genuinely pleased by my presence. You're the first person who hasn't looked at me like I'm an intruder, I observed as she handed me a cup of fragrant tea. Lily grinned. That's because I know the story. What story? About how the king found you. She perched on the edge of a chair, eyes bright with excitement. It's so romantic. They say he saw you in a vision, that the moon goddess herself showed him his true mate. I blinked. A vision? Mm-hmm. He was doing the solstice ritual at the sacred pool 3 months ago, and when he emerged, he was different, more focused, more determined. He started sending scouts to the southern territories, especially around Silver Creek. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Some say the vision showed him that his mate would be in danger, that he had to claim her before it was too late. I sipped my tea, trying to process this information. A vision? Divine intervention? It sounded like pack mythology, the kind of story wolves told around fires on long winter nights. Do you believe that? I asked. Lily shrugged. I believe he's been happier since he returned from claiming you, more like his old self, before his father died, and he had to become king so young. She stood, smoothing her skirt. I should go, but I'll be back to help you dress for dinner. The king has invited some of the council members to dine with you tonight. After she left, I sat by the window, watching clouds drift across the valley as I contemplated everything I'd learned. Dominic had known about me somehow, had sought me out specifically. Not for politics, not for territory, but because he believed I was meant to be his. The idea was simultaneously terrifying and thrilling. I spent the afternoon exploring my new quarters, familiarizing myself with this space that was now mine. In the closet, beyond the new clothes, I found a small wooden chest tucked on a high shelf. Curious, I brought it down and opened it. Inside were books, old, leather-bound volumes about northern pack history, customs, and laws. A note rested on top in strong, slanting handwriting. Elena. I thought these might help you understand your new home. They were my mother's. D. I traced the words with my fingertip, touched by the gesture. These weren't just any books. They were personal, meaningful. A connection to his past that he was offering to me. I chose one about northern traditions and settled in the window seat to read. By the time Lily returned to help me prepare for dinner, I had absorbed enough to feel slightly less lost in this new world. The blue dress, I think, Lily said, rifling through the closet. It matches your eyes and will make an impression on the council. The dress she selected was beautiful, midnight blue silk that flowed like water when I moved. Lily arranged my hair in an elegant style, letting some tendrils frame my face softly. Perfect, she declared when she finished. You look like a queen. I examined my reflection, hardly recognizing myself. The woman in the mirror looked confident, poised, nothing like the invisible girl I'd been at Silver Creek. I don't feel like a queen, I admitted. Lily smiled. You will. A knock at the door announced my escort to dinner. I expected another servant, but when Lily opened the door, Dominic himself stood there. He was dressed formally in dark pants and a charcoal button-down that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me. You're beautiful, he said simply. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Thank you. He offered his arm. Ready to meet your council, my queen? I took a deep breath and placed my hand on his arm. As ready as I'll ever be. The council chamber was intimidating. A long room with a massive oak table surrounded by high-backed chairs, walls lined with tapestries depicting northern pack history. 5 wolves waited inside, rising as Dominic and I entered. I recognized the scarred man who had shifted after finding me near the border meeting. Dominic's enforcer, I presumed. The others were new faces, each regarding me with varying degrees of interest or skepticism. My counsel, Dominic said, his hand warm at the small of my back. Allow me to formally introduce Elena, my chosen mate, and your future queen. I lifted my chin slightly, meeting their gazes one by one. It's an honor to meet you all, I said, keeping my voice steady. An older man with salt and pepper hair stepped forward first. The honor is ours, my queen. I am Garrett, head of the council and advisor on internal affairs. His smile seemed genuine, his eyes kind as they assessed me. The introductions continued. Lydia, a sharp-eyed woman responsible for relations with other packs. Marcus, the territory's healer and lore-keeper. Victor, the scarred enforcer who oversaw security. And finally, Elias, a younger wolf who managed resources and trade. Dominic guided me to a seat at the head of the table, taking his place beside me. Servants appeared with wine and the first course of what proved to be an elaborate meal. The conversation flowed more easily than I had expected, with most questions directed at understanding my background rather than challenging my presence. I spoke of Silver Creek, of my father's death defending our borders, of my life there. I was careful not to reveal too much about our pack's weaknesses or internal politics. Though I was leaving, My loyalty to my family and former packmates remained. Tell me, Lydia said during a lull, swirling wine in her glass. What do you know of the rogues threatening the southern territories? Dominic tensed almost imperceptibly beside me. I recalled our conversation in the garden, his mention of rogues using Silver Creek territory. Very little, I admitted. Our alpha has been focused inward since my father's death. Border patrols were reduced. Convenient for those who might wish to move undetected, Victor rumbled, his scarred face unreadable. Or perhaps simply short-sighted leadership, I countered, unwilling to let my former pack be painted as conspirators. Morris is cautious, sometimes to a fault, but he's not dishonorable. Victor's eyebrows rose slightly at my defense. Dominic's hand found mine under the table, a gentle squeeze of approval. The rogues are becoming bolder, Garrett said, bringing the conversation back to the matter at hand. 3 minor packs have been attacked in the last month alone. They appear organized, which suggests leadership. Someone is building an army, Marcus added, his healer's hands steepled before him. But to what end? Control of the territories, Elias suggested, or revenge. There are plenty who resent the Northern Kingdom's expansion over the last decade. Dominic remained silent, watching me as the council debated theories and strategies. I realized he was giving me space to observe, to form my own impressions of these wolves who would be my advisors. What do you think, Elena? He asked finally, drawing everyone's attention back to me. I considered carefully before speaking. In Silver Creek, we have a saying, when the prey changes its pattern, look for the hidden predator. These rogues are creating a pattern, regular attacks, specific targets. But what if that's not their true objective? What if they want us looking in one direction while they move in another? Silence followed my words, the council members exchanging glances. An interesting perspective, Garrett said finally. What direction should we be looking then? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'd want to understand what connects the packs that have been targeted, beyond just their location. Dominic smiled, pride evident in his expression. A fresh viewpoint is exactly what we needed, he said, addressing his council but looking at me. Elena will join all future council sessions. Her insight will be valuable as we address this threat. The dinner concluded with discussions of the upcoming mating ceremony. As the council members filed out, each offering a respectful good night, I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. For the first time in my life, my voice had been heard, my thoughts valued. Dominic and I walked back to my quarters in companionable silence. At my door, he paused. You were magnificent tonight, he said softly. You have no idea how proud I am to have you by my side. The intensity in his gaze made my heart race. I still have so much to learn about your pack. About being a queen. Our pack. He corrected gently. And you already possess the qualities that matter most. Wisdom, compassion, courage. His hand cupped my cheek, his touch sending warmth cascading through me. The rest will come with time. He leaned down, pressing his lips to my forehead in a gesture that was both tender and restrained. Sleep well, my queen. Tomorrow, I'll show you your kingdom. The next 2 days passed in a whirlwind of introductions and discoveries. Dominic showed me the full extent of the Northern Territory, the training grounds where young wolves learned to fight, the healing center where Marcus tended to the injured, the sacred clearing where our mating ceremony would take place. I met countless pack members, trying to remember names and faces, to understand the complex web of relationships that bound this community together. Some, like Lily, welcomed me warmly. Others remained reserved, watchful, waiting to see what kind of queen I would become. Dominic was patient, answering my endless questions, sharing stories of his childhood, of his father's reign before him, of his vision for the future. In quiet moments between official duties, we grew closer, learning each other's habits and preferences, building a foundation for the partnership that would soon be sealed by the mating bond. On the night before the ceremony, wolves from Silver Creek began to arrive. My mother came with Morris and several elders, followed later by Nathan and Melody. Seeing them in this new context, as visitors to the kingdom that would soon be mine, was surreal. My mother hugged me tightly when we were finally alone. You look different, she said, studying my face. Stronger, somehow. I feel different, I admitted. Like I've found where I'm supposed to be. She smiled, tears shimmering in her eyes. Your grandmother always said you were meant for something greater than Silver Creek could offer. I think she would be proud to see you now. I touched the silver pendant at my throat, drawing strength from it as I always had. I hope so. Later that evening, I found myself alone in the gardens behind the pack house, seeking a moment of peace before the ceremony that would change my life forever. The full moon hung heavy in the sky, its light bathing the landscape in silver. I thought I might find you here. I turned to find Melody approaching, her expression uncertain. Just needed some air, I said. She nodded, coming to stand beside me. We gazed at the moon in silence for a moment. Are you happy? She asked finally. Truly happy? Yes, I said without hesitation. In a way I never thought possible. Melody smiled, though there was a shadow of sadness in her eyes. I'm glad. You deserve it, Elena. She hesitated. Nathan has been difficult since you left. I think he's realizing what he lost. It doesn't matter anymore, I said, surprised to find it was true. The pain of Nathan's rejection had faded, replaced by the certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be. No, I suppose it doesn't. She turned to face me fully. You're going to be an amazing queen, you know. You always saw things the rest of us missed, cared in ways the rest of us forgot to. Her words touched me deeply, coming from Melody, who had always been the golden child. The validation meant more than she could know. Thank you, I said softly. The moon reached its zenith as I stood in the sacred clearing the following night, dressed in a simple white gown that shimmered in the moonlight. Around us, members of both packs formed a circle, witnesses to the ancient ritual that would bind Dominic and me together. Dominic stood before me, magnificent in ceremonial attire, his eyes never leaving mine as Marcus led us through the traditional words. When the time came for the blood exchange, the physical sealing of our bond, Dominic took my hand gently in his. Elena, he said, his voice carrying to every ear. Before our packs and under the full moon, I choose you as my mate, my queen, my partner in all things. I offer you my protection, my loyalty, my heart. He brought my wrist to his mouth, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin. Do you accept? In that moment, I saw our future unfolding, the challenges we would face together, the kingdom we would build, the love that had already taken root between us. I accept, I said clearly. I choose you as my mate, my king, my partner in all things. I offer you my strength, my loyalty, my heart. His teeth broke the skin of my wrist, the momentary pain giving way to a rush of sensation as he drew a small amount of blood. Then it was my turn, my teeth finding the pulse point at his wrist, completing the exchange that would link us forever. As our blood mingled, something shifted inside me, a connection forming, a bond strengthening. I could feel Dominic's presence in my mind, his emotions washing over me, his strength becoming mine. He pulled me into his arms, his lips finding mine in a kiss that sealed our union. Around us, both packs erupted in howls of celebration, the sound echoing through the mountains. Later, as the moon began its descent, we stood together on the balcony of what were now our shared chambers. Dominic's arms encircled me from behind, his chin resting on my head. Happy? He asked softly. I leaned back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. More than I ever thought possible, from invisible to queen, from overlooked to cherished. My grandmother had been right. True strength wasn't found in claws or teeth, but in the heart. In choosing to believe I was worthy of being chosen, in finding the courage to step into the unknown. Below us, wolves from both packs continued the celebration, their howls a symphony of unity and hope. I closed my eyes, savoring the moment, the beginning of our reign, our bond, our story together. My queen, Dominic murmured, turning me in his arms to face him. His eyes reflected the moonlight and something more. A promise, a future. Welcome home,